Good morning. Welcome to the winning side. I'm looking forward to the Lord coming back, and all the wrongs will be righted, and the God will richly bless those who've stood faithful to Him and trusted Him. And I'm gonna mention just a little bit in Exodus chapter 20 this morning as we take just a moment or two. We're just nearing a new series, Sunday school series, in all of our Sunday schools, from the little children up to the adults, on the Ten Commandments. By the Romans says, by the law is the knowledge of sin. It's no accident that our courts don't want those Ten Commandments out in public. Those basic things. Now, there's two tables, and if you've listened much, I've explained this, but there's two tables of the law. And when Jesus was asked about the commandments and what are the great commandment, he divided it into two: love God and love your neighbor. And so there's the tables of stone. There's throughout history. If you go back 100 years, the term first and second table of the law was common. Today, it's very rarely used, and not many Christians have a clue what it's talking about. And it's not being taught. I never heard it in all my 5 years of Bible college and any of the training I did. Those are things that I'm following, chasing down information, studying, listening to people who understand Baptist history and church history. But there's two tables. Now, the first is that which is man toward God, and the second table is man toward man. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's vertical. That's between us and God. Thou shalt not covet. That's between me and my neighbor. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not murder. So Jesus took the Ten Commandments and gave them in two simple statements several times in the New Testament, defining the Ten Commandments. And in those, so anyway, those commandments are there, according to the book of Romans, for the knowledge of sin, to help us realize we are sinners and that we are hopeless without the mercy of God. And in all of our self-righteousness, we start looking around at other people and we start measuring us. Paul says they measuring themselves among themselves are not wise. And that's a stupid way to evaluate things. And it's not good for one dirty old sinner to compare themselves to some other dirty old sinner. Either way, we're sinners. And what we need to do is compare ourselves to the holiness of God. That's what we need to compare ourselves to. And when that happens, we all come out on our face, humbly deserving hell. And if we can get that straightened out, see, by the law is the knowledge of sin. So we're gonna have 10, 11 weeks of Sunday school all across our Sunday school ministries on the law, and each week dealing with a different one of the Ten Commandments. But today, kind of a forerunner, I wanted to mention one of these commandments. I heard a statement the other day, either in a sermon or it might have been a news statement or whatever, but it was a great statement. And this guy, I'm not sure if it was a preacher or not, but he said, basically, everyone in prison is there for the same reason. And I'm thinking, well, theft, murder, embezzlement, I don't know if I'd say all the people are in jail. You happen to be visiting the Capitol on January 6th, whatever. I don't know why people are in jail. But his statement was basically, and of course there's always going to be exceptions, especially when you start talking about political prisoners across the world. There have been people in jail simply because they were the opposing party. How about that? That's been going on for centuries. And people in jail in Russia, Popov and others like him, Richard Wurmbrand, those in Russia and China spent many, many years in prison just because they preached the Bible. And they weren't going to say that the government was deity and that there was no God. But he said basically everybody that goes to jail that should be, justifiably, is there for one reason. He said because they wanted something for nothing. They wanted something for nothing. And I thought, that's a pretty profound statement. So just looking a little bit ahead, I don't think this is going to be in the lessons. Of course, there's going to be a lot of different people teaching these lessons, but we're all going to teach the same lesson. But in Exodus 20, verse 15, it says, thou shalt not steal. Going right with that, verse 16 is the ninth commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Verse 17, the 10th commandment. Thou shalt not covet nothing, their neighbor's house, wife, servants, animals, whatever. So you got don't steal, don't lie, don't bear false witness, and don't covet. And I think those things go together. But I think of all the ills. You tease, how do you know a used car salesman lying? Because his lips are moving. Well, why would a car salesman lie about the product he's selling? Because he wants something more than what he's delivering. And he's trying to make this look like something it's not. And so he's trying to get something for nothing, or he's trying to get more than its true value. Someone breaks into in California, they break into these jewelry stores, the smash and grabs, and just grabbing things. Why? Because somehow they feel like it's okay for them to get something for nothing. Here's a man, a woman, a family, a group of people, a corporate group who've worked and labored, and they've built up tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars of merchandise. It took time, it took money, it took developing a good name, trustworthiness. Somebody trusted them. Somebody allowed them to have things on consignment or timely payments or whatever it might be. And these people took years to set this thing up. Now they're paying rent, they're paying utilities, they're paying employees, they're paying taxes, all this stuff in order to have merchandise. And it's not theirs. Rarely would it be theirs. Usually they're just the people moving it to the customer. The customer buys it and they get their cut of it because they've done all this, and then it all gets paid before it goes back up the line, and everybody gets their piece of the value, the sale value. But this person who goes in with a hammer, breaks a glass thing, drags a bunch of stuff into a bag and runs off, somehow they feel like they have a right to get something for nothing. I think there's all three. I think number one, obviously, thou shalt not steal. They're breaking that commandment. Number two, thou shalt not bear false witness. They're blaming people, they're lying, and of course it's not just the smash and grabbers. There's all kinds of people who lie about someone, we're in a car accident and someone rear-ended us, and boy, my neck, and my this or my that. And people will lie about the accident they had, and we had somebody in an accident that they're talking to the people, and they were going to exchange information. And the other people said we didn't bring our driver's license and blah blah blah. And so they said, well, we need to call the police. And they just got in the car and left. And then by the time the police were involved, read up a report, a different person was behind the steering wheel. Thou shalt not bear false witness, and thou shalt not covet. They were coveting the money the insurance company had, coveting the money that the other person in the accident had or whatever. They're wanting something for nothing. And basically, verse 15, the eighth commandment, thou shalt not steal. They and I don't know how that all ended up, but if they got any money out of it, they were false witness, coveting, and stealing. And but that's the world, and we all understand that, and that's just life. That's the world that we're in, and I personally don't care that the court said, well, this is justifiable. Our laws are so warped. Our laws in America are so twisted. Now, I'm going to honor the laws of the land as much as I can until the laws go against the Bible. I'm going to try and honor the laws of the land, but they're not just. We're in a constitutional republic. And this is going to be coming up in our lessons as well when we get to not having idols, the second commandment. But our laws, all the laws in America, are supposed to be subject not to the whims of men. That's a monarchy where a ruling king or sovereign makes these laws. The laws of our land in a constitutional republic, all of our laws are to be subject to our Constitution. And any law that, like the Supreme Court or someone else will say, this is not constitutional. You can't have a law like that. And thank the Lord for the people who now and then will say things like that, and judges and others who will say, no, we're not even going to hear this case. This is an unconstitutional situation or whatever it might be. And what they're saying is we have a foundation in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, for instance, the free exercise of our faith. The First Amendment, that's the right of the freedom of the press, the freedom of speech. and it's the freedom of religion and the free exercise of that religion. I have a right to exercise my religious beliefs, whether you agree or not. And you have a right to exercise your religious beliefs, whether I agree or not. And that's the first thing that was put into the Bill of Rights. If you haven't heard me talk about it, that was settled between John Leland, basically the head of the Baptists, and James Madison. And when this all got started or got locked into place, there's a lot of steps that got to here, but James Madison was meeting with John Leland, soliciting the support of the Baptists. And Leland said, no, we're not going to support you. We're not going to support the ratifying of the Constitution because we are going to continue to face persecution, harassment, and laws being made against us. And there's a long story involved in that. And Leland wasn't over the Baptists, but he was a leader, and he was a representative, we might say, someone that spoke on their behalf. And James Madison said, I promise you this, you back me and you get this Constitution ratified, you get me the votes, you get me in there, I promise you a Bill of Rights, and I promise you the free exercise clause. I promise you, you will have a freedom of religion. It'll be in our founding documents. Now that's a Baptist, that First Amendment, it's a Baptist amendment. And of course, nobody wants to put any credit on Baptists because we're a bunch of poor, uneducated weirdos. And I'll accept all three: poor, uneducated, and weird. Weird just means you're different from everybody else, and poor means you ain't got any money. And uneducated, I don't claim to be brilliant. There's a lot of people in our church smarter than me, but I know this. I got this book, and this is the truth right here. And so the First Amendment gives us the free exercise of our faith. I have the right to take this book and preach this book and to preach it in our pulpit. And oh, does that make people mad? And because sometimes the preaching of the Bible convicts people of their inappropriate lifestyle. That's the kindest thing I can think of saying. And these people who have this inappropriate lifestyle want all of the rest of humanity to accept their behavior, and whatever that behavior might be, and say they have a right to their behavior. And I don't have a problem. I don't think I have a right to take away anyone else's freedom until their freedom takes away my freedom. And that's the limits. I don't think when I go up to a house out knocking on doors and it says, please don't knock on our door, that's their property. That's private property. I'm not knocking on that door. If it says no soliciting, soliciting means selling. I'm not selling. I'm inviting people to church. But I think they probably mean, please don't bother us. We're busy. And I respect that. I might leave a flyer on an appropriate spot on the porch, or I might not. I'm going to respect, that's private property. And they have a right to their freedom, and I don't want to infringe on their freedom. But when the government tells me I cannot go out and go door to door and talk to people, that is not a constitutional right. They are taking away their constitutional basis, and they are creating laws that may be appropriate to whoever's making the law, their opinions, their whims, or even public opinion. But public opinion to be a law has got to go back and be based on, as a constitutional republic, that must not violate our Constitution. And what makes America special is that Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And that's why a lot of the politicians, they keep throwing out, this is old-fashioned, we need to get rid of this, we need to toss out that, because you can't have socialism as long as you have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights. You can't have communism as long as you have the Constitution and a Bill of Rights. You can't have tyranny, because our Constitution and Bill of Rights was put together by people who were so mad at these monarchs in England throwing people in jail. The second greatest selling book in the history of the world is Pilgrim's Progress. And it was written by John Bunyan in a prison. And it's an allegorical story of the Christian life. And he wrote that in prison. And the reason he was in prison for 21 years or whatever it was, his long time he was in prison, that he was in prison because he refused to take a license to preach the gospel from the government that was Anglican or Church of England. And that would mean that the Church of England has a right to tell the Baptists, John Bunyan was a Baptist, to tell the Baptists what they can and can't say. Well, and they are our founders, the framers. The founders were the ones who brought the idea to fruition. The framers are the ones who laid out and organized the three branches of government: the judicial, the legislative, and the executive. And they're the ones that laid out Congress and all the senators and congressmen and all that kind of stuff. They're the framers. They put all this thing in order. Those people were so fed up with what went on in Europe, and that some government leader or some religious leader, you've watched a Robin Hood story or a story of World War II where Hitler ruled and forced all the Jews over here. You go to North Korea, you can go to any part of the world with tyrants. The fact that someone would say, well, those people in the Middle East, their religion says women have to go out of their house. If they're out of their house, have to be covered, or you can't have a Bible or whatever. Well, that's their country, and I don't know that I have a right to go tell their country what to do, but I know this: that's not America. In America, women have rights, and women have the same rights as men do. And in America, I don't have a right to tell you or to tell somebody else what you can do. And that's the danger of bringing in other religions into our country, because if their religion wants to take away your freedom, then their religion's got to stop. So my freedom, going back to where we started, my freedom is limited when it violates the Constitution or when it violates your freedom. And the great thing about America is this matter of freedom. So somebody goes into my backyard and steals my lawnmower. They want something for nothing. What do? They coveted. What did they do? They stole. And maybe they get home and try to explain where they got it. They probably bear false witness. They probably lied about where they got it. Some kid gets in their mom's purse and takes some money. They coveted. They stole. And when they were asked where the money came from, they probably lied and bore false witness. And so most of the good portion of the crimes that go on, and probably a good portion of the people in prison, they wanted something for nothing. And usually, I don't know about murder, that somebody might just kill somebody, but if they, a lot of times I think those killings probably go along with, I want your stuff, or you tried to stop me from doing something that I want to do, and so then I killed you or whatever. But back to the Ten Commandments, we're not supposed to covet other people's things. If I start a business and you start a business and yours prospers and mine fails, either it's the sovereignty of God, or I'm not a good businessman, or I didn't handle my employees right. But I'm not mad at you. I might say, hey, could you help me? What did I miss here? Maybe I'm going to learn from you. But I'm not to covet your success, because coveting leads to wrong behavior. Coveting leads to stealing. Coveting leads to lying. And so these commandments, there a lot of them are connected in there. So in Exodus 20, when he goes through these 10 commandments, you're not supposed to covet these things. You're not supposed to steal them. You're not supposed to bear false witness about those things. You're not supposed to steal. We got to be so guarded. And I think one of the things that happens in our media, it's like billboards, only it's in front of us all the time on our phones or tablets or televisions, this commercial. And what does that commercial do? It makes me want that thing. Something I'd have been content without it. But now that I've looked at it over and over, I think, man, I need to get one of those things. I need a new Tesla pickup, or I need this thing where I can sit in my chair and watch TV and pedal this thing, and it'll make me skinny. And we're coveting something, and then a lot of times, in those cases, we probably go buy what we think we want, but we're buying it as a result of covetousness. You look at that house and you go through model homes. My wife, on rare occasion, but on occasion, if we're thinking of painting our house, she would go through model homes to see what kind of color schemes are fashionable. We don't want to be completely, back in the backwoods in our styles. If we can help it, if it's not too expensive, just, paint this color, that color. Why not paint the color that seems to be culturally appropriate or whatever? But But she'll go to model homes to see the type of carpet being put down, the type of flooring, the type of paints, whatever. But you got to be careful just walking through model homes, because pretty quick you're going to hate your house. Even going to the mall and looking at those skinny mannequins, you're gonna try that dress on. It ain't gonna look as good on you as it does that person. I go to the store and see all these shoes on sale. Well, I need a 13 wide with a high arch. And I look at all these nice shoes, and I look, there's no shoes down there. Rarely is there a pair of shoes that will fit my foot. And so that causes me frustration and anxiety. I don't think those break the 10 Commandments, but so going to the mall makes us covetous. Going to the mall can make us steal. Going to the mall can make us lie about things, and because I want that, I need that. Well, had you not seen it, would you need it? Yeah, well, I really do need it, and we're going to be so careful about how we handle these things. But let's just think through this thing, stealing. How should you get stuff? You should work and get your stuff. Or your parents worked to give you stuff. Or you have somebody that loves you. They worked and got their stuff and gifted some things to you. But anything beyond that, however you get something for nothing, maybe you got it in real estate speculation. Say, well, they didn't work. They were smart enough to know what to invest in, and they risked their money. There's some risk. You put money in real estate, you can be broke real fast. Maybe they invested in the stock market. You say, well, they got something for nothing. I don't know if they got something for nothing. I would say they worked at it. They planned. They studied the markets and trends and things like that. But for you to just get something that you didn't work for, that's stealing, and that's not from God. And I believe we will all we'll all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. It's appointed to men once to die, and after that, the judgment. And I'm thankful that because I accepted the gift of eternal life that Jesus Christ paid for in Calvary, I'm thankful that my sins are forgiven. So I won't face my sins. Those were already judged on Calvary. But I will face my works. What have I done? And you might not understand the difference, but what have I done with my money? Was it all selfish, or did I use my money for others? What have I done with my time? Was it all selfish, or was it done for others? And my sins, those sins are all paid for. But my productivity, my usefulness as a child of God, that's what I'll be judged for. So you got the judgment seat of Christ, you got the great white throne judgment, but all of us are going to face God in judgment. And this thing of getting something for nothing, over in, I mentioned this the other day, in 1 Thessalonians, if a man doesn't work, neither should he eat. That is a Bible truth. Now, a man's crippled, a lady's crippled, families, whatever. I have a right to give my money to the poor, and I do. And I regularly put money in the hands of people, or put money in a place so people that are in need can have it. That's not wrong to give, but they should work for their money. That's their responsibility. And these are biblical. To expect something for nothing, that's not right. We should work and plan. The grades people are being given without passing classes and passing tests, to get a diploma without doing the work, that's tragic. I remember my 8th grade year, up until that year in our school district, or maybe California, I don't know. That would have been about 1971, I guess. We had what they called the Constitution test. And every person to graduate from 8th grade, I think it was 8th, might have been 7th, but anyway, in that era, they had to pass the Constitution test. And you had to be able to answer these questions so that when you're going into junior high, high school, whatever, that you at least knew the basis of American constitutionalism and how our country is run. And it was scary to us. Of course, if it had a good teacher, it wouldn't be scary. But who has good teachers, right? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But I remember, really, I was not the best student. I wasn't horrible, but I remember thinking, I don't know anything about the Constitution. I don't even know if I could spell the word Constitution. And here I was sitting there and thinking about it, and what am I going to do? And that year they canceled that rule, and we didn't have to have the Constitution. I said, we were all really happy. And but looking back, I think they should have taught us the Constitution. But at some point they began not teaching our young people about our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, and I had to learn the Constitution on my own. I shouldn't be getting a pass on something that I never worked to learn. And you mean, I don't want the doctor working on my teeth or my bones to have not passed his tests. And so this thing of getting something for nothing, that's a deadly thing. It's deadly to a family, to an individual, to a home, to a church, to a nation. We ought to labor, and we ought to work hard, and we ought to invest our time and our talent and our treasure. Garden, if you're going to grow fruit, you're going to grow vegetables, you're going to work, or you're going to pay workers to do it. But somebody's going to work. And anyway, so we'll be talking about these 10 commandments, and hope you'll join us in some of these lessons. Again, all the kids from first grade right on up to adults. And we're just going to take some time to remind ourselves about the basic laws, not the laws that get us saved, because no one's going to keep these. You can't get past the first commandment. If keeping the first commandment got you to heaven, we'd all go straight to hell. The first commandment, have no other gods before me. We've all got gods besides God. To one extent or another. We may not have a statue, but we've got a dream, we've got a job, we've got a house, we've got a car, we've got a food, whatever. We all push God off to the side on occasion. No, these commandments are to teach us about how sinful we are, so that we'll come to God saying, I need mercy because I'm not good enough. I need to be forgiven. And God says, well, you know what? I sent my son to take care of that. If you'll trust him, he'll save you. Since you're not good enough to get to heaven, my son will get you there because he's definitely good enough. What a wonderful gospel. What a wonderful God. Hey, have a great day. Thanks for joining us.